Hello there folks, welcome to Blaine County Survivor Man. Today guys, we're going to discuss survival snaring. I'm going to show you how to use snare wire, which I have a piece of right here. And one of the first things I want to show you is how the A-figure trigger works. That's the first trigger I was ever showed when I was a young man on how to set a snare. This trigger has three pieces: the one that you shove in the ground or you tie to a tree stub. So if you're using a more powerful tree, you would want to I tie these things down so that they can't be pulled out of the ground when it rains. We have this piece, which is part of your trigger, and here's the actual trigger. Now you can either bait these or use them as a trail set, and here is how this particular trigger works. If you put bait on this and set your snare where the animal's head will go through the snare, and you put the bait on this end of it, he pulls down on this trigger and that sets the snare off. And that's how this particular A trigger works. And that's the first snare I was ever showed when I was a young man. And now we'll go out into the field and I will show you how these things look in actual settings in the field. Okay guys, let me show you this setup right here. Here's a setup that you'll see in a survival book. I call this one the hair trigger snare set. You see my tree's bent over, and I've got a bent piece of wood that's driven into the ground. Here's part of the trigger. Here's the hair trigger part of it. And I've got this set up as a trail set. And a trail set means simply that here comes your rabbit along, and he hops through and he comes up to the snare set and he's just going down a trail. There's no bait or anything, so he just sticks his head through there. And as everybody knows, a rabbit cannot walk, so most of the time in these survival situations people be catching rabbits. So since a rabbit can't walk, when he comes up to your set, he will just make a lunge through the set. When he lunges through the set, his head will become entrapped inside the loop, and it will pull this trigger stick and it will dislodge it from right back here, and you will have a rabbit on the line. Hey guys, check this out. Supposing you're in the woods somewhere and you want to set a snare and there's no saplings around. Well, all you got to do is take a weight. Now, I've got this rock set up over this tree down here to a trigger stick. Now this trigger stick right here is the one that you'll see in the survival book. Every survival book has this particular trigger stick. All I did was shove that stick into the ground and cut a notch right here. I cut a notch in this stick, and that's the one that's tied to that, to my jute cord there. And all that is, it just hangs right in there. As soon as the animal goes through this loop, and this is a trail set up like you would catch like a fox or a coyote in, or a big coon. But he'll go through, and when he pulls this loose, this rock will drop and he'll be hung. And that's how you do it. If you don't have any springy little trees around in your environment, you need not fear. You can use that particular set and still do the same thing. All right, we just showed you a snare wire setup. Now let me explain snare wire. The snare wire that I use is painted green. It's hard to see in the environment. It sort of matches the background. Now this stuff I buy at a hardware store like Lowe's or somewhere like that, and it's the kind of wire that florists use, and this is called florist wire, and it's 10-pound test. It's really thin, and it works great for snares because the loop stays open. And here's how you make your snare loop. Simply break that off. See that little thing? Okay. Put the other end through. This is called a stationary snare. About that size for a rabbit will work real good at about 4 inches off of the ground, and it's just a stationary snare. It's set up. You want the rabbit to get caught by its neck so that it'll strangle itself while it's struggling. And that's how you set that stationary snare. See how it blends into the background. Okay, check out this snare setup. This snare setup is also a setup that you will see in snaring books. All you do is take a trigger stick and notch it, and notch your 2 trees or 2 stobs that you put in the ground. It don't make any difference. I've got this one set up as a cubby set. And cubby set means that I can put some kind of bait back inside this hole and cause the animal to go inside there or stick its head inside the loop to take the bait. When it does, it will become entangled in the string. When it backs out, it'll pull this trigger set loose from this post, and up goes the animal. And that's called a cubby set. And this is one that you'll see plenty of these, and these work really good. This is one of the best sets that I've used to be effective. This set used over a groundhog hole will catch every groundhog and every rabbit that goes in or out of that hole. Okay guys, check out this one. Here is my figure 8 snare set. And I've got this one set up as a trail set, meaning you need no bait or anything. You just sit it in the trail the way the rabbit's going or the coon or fox is going. There's the triggers. Here's the little bitty trigger, and here's the long trigger. The animal will come through, hook himself through the snare and pull that trigger loose, and this tree will take him skyward. Alright guys, check this one out. Here's this same simple setup that you see in survivor books. Every one of them, you'll see that little setup. I had it over on one of the other sets. This is a trail set. Here comes the rabbit, fox, squirrel, and goes through, pulls that stob loose, and he goes skyward. But one thing I do want to tell you is that snares really work. I've used them to catch all kind of game: bobcats, foxes, coons, possums, rabbits, you name it. They can be caught in these snares. These are for real. Don't go out in the field and set these things and just leave them, because some animal will come along eventually and get hung up in them. So be cool about it. Practice these things. After you've practiced them, then take them loose so nothing will get caught. Above all, be safe. If you're in a survival situation, you need to learn how to set these snares. So guys, that's another tip from your Bland County Survivor Man. Have fun and have a nice day.